All right, welcome back to the afternoon keynote speakers here at the Stardust Festival 2023 here in Timmins. And it's up here at Timmins for the first time ever. So this is a great leap here, seeing all these NASA gurus joining us from all over the planet, including our next keynote speaker. The third time's the charm. We've got the metal plate in our heads fixed there, Raphael. We're going to welcome him to our next main stage. He's our keynote speaker this afternoon, Raphael Grau, Deputy Manager of the ISS External Integration at NASA, joining us here this afternoon.
Hello, Timmins, Ontario. How do you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, cool. All right, so this is part of the experience that I was going to share with you that seems to be appropriate is success in life has an element of persistence. Jason asked me to share my story with you of how I got to where I am. You can see over my shoulder views from the space station as the astronauts see it with the Aurora Borealis over here and the world passing by at 17,500 miles per hour. And real quick, my undergraduate's electrical engineering. I have an MBA with a focus on international strategy and technical management. When I graduated college, that semester was the semester that NASA experienced the Challenger accident. And so no one was hiring at the time. And I went to work for an outfit that was automating power utilities. So we were applying computer control to a large electrical grid. I was actually working on the Potomac Electric, so the area around Washington, D.C. And that was serendipitous because it's like controlling a power system on an aircraft or a spacecraft. You have computers reading sensors and logic to make sure that it operates it safely without hurting anybody. And then 3 years later, when the shuttle system started flying again, I decided to apply for a job here in the area. I got a job with a contractor, and then 3 months later, NASA snatched me up, and I've been at NASA now for 33 years. So although I couldn't get in right after college, a little bit of persistence and trying again, I finally got into my love, which is NASA. So I'll go over real quick some slides. These are the three regimes, that we designed for. So we've got space station, the moon, and Mars. And so those are the design parameters that y'all will have to deal with in executing missions into space. It took us 11 years to build a space station. We work around the world. So those are all the control centers and design centers around the world that it took to build the space station. And that's what your future is, a global future. You're going to be selling on the internet or really having market share that's usable, you have to do it around the world. So that's your world. And then I'm told that you are going to be launching some rockets. And so launching rockets in 1 gravity versus 0 gravity, you have to take some things into consideration. So I thought I'd show you this video. A watched pot never boils, but we watch pots. So you can see the difference here. Microgravity boiling, the water just sticks in a big bubble. On Earth with 1G, you actually get displacement because you have gravity. You can see how combustion works. That's your birthday candle here on Earth. That's your birthday candle up in space. It's a little ball of fire. So for all you rocket scientists trying to make a propulsion system work, don't forget to take into account the different gravity effects on your system, both flowing through pipes and how the combustion process actually takes place. You might get surprised. Last week I welcomed the crew that is now on board the ISS. So it's kind of wild that last Sunday I was welcoming the crew to the Kennedy Space Center so that they could go get ready and get on to their rocket. We delayed for 24 hours for safety reasons to make sure that we truly understood some anomalies that we had observed in the system to make sure the crew was safe. And just now I watched them have their welcome on board ceremony. So kind of interesting that one day you're here on Earth and a few days later you're up in space, and they'll be living in space for 6 months. And so beyond rocket science, we can use doctors and scientists to try and understand the impacts to the human body of being in space. And so we are working on getting to the moon. We'll actually take a Canadian citizen. Jeremy will take a crew around the moon next year. And then the year after that, we expect to actually have people back on the surface of the moon. We're working on a space station to go around the moon to act as a way station. So you'd fly up in the capsule system, and then you'd have a ferry that would bring you from the station to the surface of the moon and back. We're going to learn to live on the surface of the moon. So there's a lot of opportunities for you to develop the systems that keep humans safe and healthy on another planetary body. And what we learn there will also apply to the next phase, which is going to Mars. We've got our early explorers, all our rovers right now, learning about Mars and where ice might be so we can have water and fuel. Eventually, maybe some of you in the audience will be these folks and looking at the Earth from Mars, and that's kind of what it looks like, a little blue dot in the distance. So thoughts for your careers. Know your why. What is your passion? I heard a little bit yesterday, I think, for a CEO of a Mac device, and he talked about passion. I would tell you my top 3 values in life are love, trust, and inner strength. And to me, I'm a service leadership type fellow. I want to make sure that I have an environment for my team so that they can be the best that they can be. And so I enjoy helping others. And working at NASA, what we do at NASA has the potential of helping the whole world. And so I'm at the right place for my passion of being able to be of value to others. So learn your why. There's different ways you can do that. There's different tests online that sort of help you guide and put into words what's important to you, and then follow that. Get outside your comfort zone. It's way too easy to just chill out and ride things. I remember in college, the semesters that I would stay focused and studied Friday nights, Saturday nights, I would make the dean's list. And the semesters that I focused more on, shall we say, expanding my socializing capabilities, I did not make the dean's list. So again, get outside your comfort zone, pick your focus. It's tough to say, no, I can't go out. I've got to study, because my priorities, my why is here for these studies. We talked about, I heard yesterday something about making mistakes. At NASA, you've all heard failure is not an option. But the full sentence is, failure is not an option when a life hangs in the balance. And so folks here at Mission Control, their activities, their decisions, there are 7 lives that hang in the balance that are up on orbit. And so that's not the time to make a mistake. but we do run a lot of simulations, a lot of tests, and so that they can make the mistakes without hurting anybody and learn from those mistakes. So push yourself out of the comfort zone. Yeah, you're going to have mistakes. Learn from them. Those are that. If you think about an airplane, you really don't know how hard you can drive the fly the airplane until you've exceeded the performance envelope, and you have an error, but you know exactly how good that airplane's going to be. Just personal experience here. If you just focus on getting the promotion, that may pick the wrong focus. Pick the position that drives your passion, that connects with your passion, because then you're doing what you love, you're loving what you do, and people will take notice of the extra efforts you put in and how much you are really dedicated to it. And so it'll shine and it'll find the promotions for you when you really are into what you're doing. Talk to your fellow colleagues, seek out mentors, ask for people to share their experiences with you. Always try to learn from others. It's great to make your own mistakes and learn from them, but it's even better when you can learn from others' mistakes so you don't have to make them. So here at the Johnson Space Center, I'm part of the official mentoring program. I have proteges. One protege gave me the little Yoda. It's we, of course, at NASA, we are an acronym. So our Yoda program is your opportunity to develop another. Let's see. If you want to go into leadership, if that's what drives you, like for me, I like to be able to help others be their best. Study it as a discipline. There are techniques, there are things that you can do to better understand your blind spots. And so really focus on if that's what you want to be, is one of the leaders, take that as a discipline that you can study and improve on. So the other thing is work-life balance. What I tell my folks is you have to take care of yourself so you can be there for those who count on you. I told Jason that my original time with you was yesterday, a little earlier in the day. However, I had spent 26 hours awake and went to sleep and did not hear an alarm. So again, work-life balance, if you don't keep that, it'll lead to performance issues and worst health issues to then impacting you long term. So make sure you manage that actively. We all work for someone. So I would tell you, learning to be a good active listener, to learn to communicate. On the space station, we have 5 space agencies. We have 15 nations that signed the treaty that created the space agency, and probably 3 or 4 times that many cultures in our workforce. And so communicating across all those different dimensions and time zones and whatnot becomes exceedingly important. Spend time learning how to be an active listener and how to communicate clearly. It will help you long term in any effort that you've got, both personal and professional. Remember, exploration is a team sport. It's made up of individuals, but only when we work together do we get the ability to really succeed. So a lot of resources there. All right. So I raced through that. So I'm going to turn it over to you all. You got any questions? What do you want me to talk about?
Are you able to hear us, Raphael?
Loud and clear.
Mark's going to turn the camera over. Oh no, now you got to see my face. Well, we want to see the participants, but I do have one question before I bring it to the audience. So, we're an outsider when it comes to, and I'll call it the space world for lack of a better term. The folks behind me have a lot more in-depth knowledge. I'm going to go right there, cameraman. But my question is, I'm always curious about, is how do they weigh risk versus reward? So I believe in creativity and expanding our knowledge, and there's a vast amount of knowledge that we probably haven't even touched yet. But in your career, how do you volume the rewards there, but the risk may be too high? Does that just come in incremental steps?
So if you're talking about how we handle risk here at NASA, we're very disciplined about it. We look at Monte Carlo simulations of, what is the probability of something happening? And should it happen, what's the consequence of it? And so we have a very formalized approach of understanding, should this thing break, how bad can it be? Do I lose a crew? Do I damage irreparably the vehicle? Or do I just lose science? Or it's just an inconvenience, like a buzzer that's going off and you can't turn it off for a little while. So we calibrate that really very mathematically. We do tests and whatnot. If you're talking about, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh well, I'm being a little more generalistic. So, for example, if we want to put a man on Mars, just hypothetically, and you're starting to probably get an understanding of my knowledge in space, but if we want to put a man on Mars, how much? Where do they evaluate what they would believe the end reward of putting a man or woman on Mars? And I mean a person when I say man, or the risk, the cost, the technology, obviously the risk of life being the highest priority. At what point do they go, at the end of the day, it may not be worth it? So this is more of a generalistic question I have. I've always been curious about it.
Yeah, we've had those discussions here as we try to talk to our stakeholders. Why should I invest in sending a human to another planetary body? And the things that it's a qualitative assessment. It really depends on the level of risk acceptance or risk aversion of the individual. I would tell you, the scientific community runs into that on a regular basis in differentiating between basic science and applied science. It's easier to make a pitch for applied science because you've got a problem you want to solve, and it said, hey, if you let me do this research, I can solve this problem for you. So the risk reward calculation is a little bit easier. With a basic research, basic science, like sending a human to a planetary body, you don't know what you'll learn and what you will open up. We often use the example that by challenging industry to send a human to the moon and back safely, we created a lot of technologies that we live by today that are indispensable. And so this is where usually governments kick in, do some of the basic research, because it's difficult to calculate the reward to understand the risk is worth it. And so if you think about the statement that the only way humanity will survive is to become an interplanetary species. Yeah, we've seen in the geological history that the Earth has experienced calamity where most life is eradicated. And so if humanity wishes to continue, we need to be, as we at NASA, we love redundancy, but we need to have a redundant set of humans living off planet in case this planet becomes a calamity again. Did that
That's
answer
awesome.
your question?
Yeah, it does. I'm all for. I even got a business partner. You can send up the Mars first if you want. But yes, I'm a thousand. I'm a I'm 1,000% behind it. All right, sorry about that, folks. I just had to get that. I was always curious. Was there anyone else that had a question for Raphael? Okay, it looks like we're all good.
Well, I wish I could have been there with you, but space is hard and our schedules didn't become compatible at the end. But I'm glad I got the opportunity to talk with you all today.
Oh, thank you so much. We really appreciate it here in Timmins on a unregular sunny day, close to fall. But thank you so much for your time. I thought that was completely wonderful.
My pleasure. Take care, everyone.
Yeah.
What an amazing guest there. Raphael Grau joining us here at the Stardust Festival 2023. And I do believe we have our next keynote speaker minutes away from arrival, Kirk Shireman, the VP from Lunar Exploration Campaign, and Lockheed Martin. So we're going to await Kirk's arrival, and we'll bring him to the podium next as our next keynote speaker here this afternoon at California.
That so just make sure we keep hearing it. Oh, hearing it.
Hey, hello. Can you guys hear me? Because I'm not sure I'm hearing anything.
Can you hear us? Try it again.
Can you hear me? This is Kirk.
Hey, Kirk, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Perfect. All right. We live now? All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our next keynote speaker beaming in here to the College Boreal foyer today as we enjoy Stardust Festival 2023. Big round of applause for everybody who showed up and who is still sticking around for these amazing guests, like our next guest to the podium, Kirk Shireman, VP from Lunar Exploration Campaign at Lockheed Martin, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, good morning. I hope you guys can hear me all right. Give me just a second here to get everything squared away. Can you see my screen? And I don't see you guys now. Hang on. I got 3 displays here and I can't see anything.
Yeah, we can see you.
Okay. Can you see that? Let me try to share my screen here. Give me just a second. Share screen.
Okay, so when we display your screen, we're going to be on a solo screen. You will be. So you won't see us, but we'll still be able to see your screen.
How about now? Can you see my screen?
There it is.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm obligated by U.S. law to show PowerPoint slides, so I have PowerPoint slides. Hey, it's great to be here with you today. I thought I would go over a few things and then maybe open it up for questions. I'm in Houston, Texas. By the way, if you're curious, that's 1 day and 2 hours driving time from Timmins in light traffic. So about 1,800 miles, a little over 2,900 kilometers, and it's a balmy 40 degrees C here in Houston today. So I'm wishing I was with you guys up there. What I thought I would do is tell you a little story about a personal story, maybe a personal story about me. Of course, it involves a lot of people beyond me. And the really cool thing is that the story's not over yet. So let me get started here, and we'll go on this little history together with the future. So in 1969, I was alive in 1969, and I was watching TV in July. If you're curious what things looked like in 1969 and what televisions look like, this is pretty much it. Believe it or not, the world was in color back then. It's kind of hard to believe because everything you look at from those days is in black and white. But for us, it was in color, although the TV was still in black and white. TVs looked just like that. They were big. They were heavy. They actually was a whole industry associated with repairing TVs too. They all used vacuum tubes. It was quite the thing. I lived in a small town in South Texas. I say small town, small city, maybe. I looked it up this morning. It's about 2 times the size in terms of population than Timmins. So to give you an idea, certainly not Toronto or Houston. It was about 80,000 people living in Corpus Christi. Had nothing to do with space, and in fact, it was small enough and safe enough. You would drive as a kid. I would drive my bicycle all over the town. That was kind of a normal day. So in 1969, I was watching the first human walk on the moon, Neil Armstrong. Here's probably what you think it looks like. You may have even seen this picture you can notice, if you notice the little crosses, I don't know if you probably can't see my cursor, but just off to the right hand here, you see this cross off his right hand, and a little above, you see these crosses. That's pretty much what the cameras look like on Apollo when the film came back. Um, just really beautiful photographs. This is not what it would look like today. Today, if the astronaut was there, he'd have a selfie stick and he'd probably be doing a TikTok dance. But that is what it looked like in 1969. If you were there. However, if you were laying down in front of a TV in Corpus Christi, Texas, this is what it really looked like. Most people can't even imagine how bad the video was that we lived. Of course, we didn't know any better. This was as good as it got, so this was awesome. But this is what the real moon landing looked like to those of us back here on the planet. And like I said, I was watching it from Corpus Christi, Texas. I have done some research and seen newspapers from around the world in China, Russia, Europe, Asia, all over, and you see pictures of the moon landing and the first steps on the moon. It really was watched from around the world. Let's see. Oops, sorry. So John F. Kennedy, who was the president of the United States back in 1962, he gave a speech, and this speech is a famous one. It was given here in Houston, September 12th, 1962. And in that speech, he said, "We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard, because the goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills, because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept and one that we are unwilling to postpone." They had a commemoration of this event actually in last year. So it was the 50th anniversary, 60th anniversary of that speech. And by the way, I went there. I sat in Rice Stadium on September 12th, and it was every bit of 38 degrees C, and we were sweating like crazy. By the way, if you ever watch a video, you'll see people dabbing at sweat. But those words that he said were true then, and I believe they're true now. When we talk about going back to the moon, it's still hard. It still serves to organize us internationally, and it still serves to measure our energies and skills. It's still a very, very difficult thing, and we're willing to do it now. So I'm really happy to be part of this story going forward. So what has changed? So what's different this time? So we did Apollo. The last Apollo vehicle left December 14th, 1972. Quite a long time ago. So what's different this time when we go back? So the big things are scientific discovery has evolved. Engineering technology has evolved. Commercial space and commercial space companies have changed the economy of space. And of course, international cooperation has drastically increased. So today we really go forward as a world. I'll talk about a little bit about these. So scientific discovery. So there are many new discoveries and reasons to explore the moon. So recently, water has been confirmed on the moon. We believe it's in the polar regions of the moon, in particular in permanently shadowed regions. It might even extend way beyond that. There's data to be learned about the origin of the moon, of the Earth-Moon system, and really of our solar system there on the moon. There's the history because of no erosion. Scientists can learn how the Earth and the moon were formed, how our solar system was formed. There's a radio quiet zone for astronomy. So today, we all live lives. It's actually, there's so much communication, so much data. It's actually hard to focus in on a little data and make sense of it. The same is true in the frequency ranges today. But the beauty is if you put a radio telescope or a telescope on the backside of the moon, it points away from the Earth and the moon's a great shield from all that RF energy. So it's actually a great place for astronomy. No atmosphere, no interference, and there are many, many more things that one can do. Those are just the things on the moon themselves. On the upper right, that's actually some data from the coldest place on Earth. This data actually is a Bose-Einstein condensate. It is, I think, 1/1,000,000th of a degree above absolute zero. This was an experiment conducted on the International Space Station. But in a vacuum and in zero gravity or microgravity, one can actually get things colder and they persist longer. This is an example of the kinds of things we can do on or around the moon. The bottom one here is OSIRIS-REx. Again, an example of the kinds of things we can do. Obviously, this is an asteroid Bennu, but since OREX is about to come home, I wanted to put a plug in for this kind of science because it is the science that's going to be done on the moon too. OREX was launched on the 8th of September 2016. The samples were collected on October 20th, 2020. They'll actually come back in the atmosphere this year in the Utah desert on September 24th. They'll be transported to Houston, and there'll be a big press release event going on October 11th here in Houston. So if you're curious about the origins and planetary science, a great opportunity to tune in and listen about OREX. But these are just examples of the scientific discovery that's come along since Apollo. Engineering technologies evolved. So today, one of our big goals would be to use the resources that are there present on the moon. Oh, we talked about water. Water can be used. You can I'll call it crack water, make hydrogen and oxygen, which is outstanding rocket fuel. You can use the regolith for construction of habitats and other resources. By the way, the regolith is really, really rich in oxygen. You could use it to create oxygen for humans to breathe. Engineering technologies allowed reliable space transportation today. We fly more rockets today in a month than were flown in those days in 1969. More efficient propulsion, such as nuclear thermal propulsion. If you look in the lower left, that's a artist rendering of this Draco vehicle that we'll be building and flying as a demonstration. The first ever nuclear thermal propulsion test in space. So looking forward to that. There's also nuclear electric propulsion. There's large-scale electric power generation with solar arrays one can do on the moon and actually use resources there on the moon to help produce those. Of course, you can have nuclear power, space nuclear power on the moon for those long, cold lunar nights. And the list really goes on. It's a long, long list. So engineering technology certainly evolved since the Apollo. Commercial space. So commercial space has really changed the economy of space. So today, the cost of transportation, whether it's cargo or humans, has gone down significantly. There's no question. What was started here, with SpaceX and Orbital ATK now it's Northrop Grumman. All those companies have really, number one, reduced the cost of transportation. And today there's a proliferation of small companies looking to build smaller and smaller and more efficient rockets to take up the whole spectrum of payloads. In fact, I know you guys will be launching some rockets up there. It's now become, the economy has become where it can be done by students. It can be done successfully by students in small companies. It really has opened up space at large. It's increased the pace of innovation. The pace of innovation has never been like it is today. It's drastic. It's also ushered in an age of significant private investment. So I used to say, I still do to some extent, it has cooled off a little bit in the last couple of years, but space is sexy. So investment companies wanted to get in the mix. So private investment, private equity worldwide has really spawned the flurry of small companies now that are in space. And then, of course, there's billionaires. There's no question that Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and others have come in and used their private wealth to really shake up the space industry. All those things make space different today. This image on the right is from a very recent July of this year. This is actually the lunar lander and the transporter that Blue Origin and Lockheed Martin are building. It's part of Blue Origin won the contract with NASA to go be able to land astronauts on the moon, and we're happy to be part of that team. And I wanted to show you guys an image of that. International cooperation has increased. Of course, you guys all recognize the top picture on the right with Jeremy Hansen as a Canadian astronaut. You can see the Canadian flag there. It's almost, given where we've been in the last few decades, it's almost unimaginable that we would go without inviting the rest of the world to go along. So Jeremy's going to be on the first crew to ever fly on Orion. They'll go to the moon. And actually, I think you guys heard from Fred Hayes earlier today. Fred holds the record for the human being who's been farthest from Earth ever. I mean, it's not like in the last 50 years. I mean, it's ever. These four will beat Fred Hayes' record. Hang on just a second. Sorry. Can you hear my screen share? Can you see my screen share? Is anyone there? Stand by just a second.
Yeah, we can hear you and still see you loud and clear.
Okay, good. I was worried. I got a text from Stacy. I was worried that you weren't be able to see it.
No, we can see you loud and clear.
All right, cool.
Everything looks beautiful.
I'm just sorry my picture's not up here in the upper right. Anyway, so about where have we been? Of course, this also shows the lower left is International Space Station. It's near and dear to my heart. The International Space Station has been permanently inhabited for 23 years. Coming up on 23 years. November this year will be 23 years. In fact, I bet there's a lot of people in that room who've never known a time when people weren't living and working on board the International Space Station. Just yesterday, there was a crew, ISS-7 launched. On that crew was a Japanese astronaut, a Danish astronaut, a Russian cosmonaut, and an American astronaut. So space truly is an international endeavor. When we look at the lower right there, you see Orion and the European Service Module. At least that's what we call it. It's made by ESA and Airbus Industries, along with the many industrial partners in Europe. That's already flown once, and of course, it will carry the crew above them to around the moon, and it'll ultimately carry the next human to walk on the moon out to the lunar vicinity. And then the upper left here is the Gateway Space Station. It's being worked on today, being developed, and it has, again, it has Canadian participation, European participation, Japanese participation. So most likely it will have participation from the Arab world as well. Today, if you look at Artemis program, which is Gateway and Orion, over 27 countries have signed the Artemis Accord. So going back to the moon really, truly is an international endeavor. I wanted to show this picture because it kind of caps that last thing. This is a picture, it actually is a real photograph. This is not an artist rendering. It's a real photograph of low Earth orbit as seen from Earth. I love it for a couple of reasons. One, you can see how thin, if you look at off in the horizon, that little blue area is our atmosphere. So you see how thin and precious our atmosphere really is in this photograph. But the real reason I show this photograph is I have looked at it for hours. I have yet to see a country's border on this photograph. So when you look at the Earth from space, there are no borders. So now we're talking about going back and doing things sustainably. So what do? How do we do that? So agencies and companies are continuing to develop and refine sustainable architectures. The keys there are to investments that feed forward into future elements, or just don't make an investment that when we're done with that, we throw it away and have to design and invest all over again. So we've invested in SLS, we've invested in Orion. Those are great things. Let's invest in lunar landers that are reusable. That's what we're doing. Let's invest in mobility on the lunar surface that can be used over and over again. Let's invest in those kinds of things. So the architectures that we're looking at, the investments that agencies around the globe are making, really truly are with a focus of sustainability. How do we do those things? How do we make sure those investments play forward? And in some cases, how do those investments even play forward to going on to onto Mars? That would be truly fantastic for that to happen in my lifetime. So that's how we're doing it. I'd love to have questions if you have some about that. But I can tell you, Lockheed Martin has done a lot of work in this area. NASA has published their architectures. I know from working with various Canadian companies, they're working on this as well. I know European Space Agency is working on it, Japanese Space Agency, the Russians, the Chinese, all are working on these architectures. I suspect in the end it won't be exactly like any of those, but the thought and the work going into those architectures really will help us be more sustainable when we go to the moon. So really in closing here, was there a question?
Oh, sorry. That's just me, Jamie, coming to the stand. Continue your thought, Kirk. I was going to take questions if anyone had any.
All right, I'm just going to finish this last chart and then I'll open up to questions. This is a picture, again, a real photograph of the Earth rising over the moon. An incredible, thought-provoking image. And I wanted to close by saying this. So Gene Cernan, on December 14th, 1972, spoke these words shortly before he climbed the ladder into the lunar lander and then departed the lunar surface, the last human being to leave a footprint on the moon. And Gene said, "And as we leave the moon at Taurus Littrow, we leave as we came, and God willing, we shall return with peace and hope for all mankind." This is not only a hope, but it's my personal mission. It's many, many people's mission. Please come join us in that mission. Thank you very much. And with that, I'd love to open up for questions.
Well, okay. Does anyone have any questions? If you'd like to come up to the podium, and you get front and center stage to ask it. You're lucky because I had a real doozy plan, but I'll let you go first. There you go.
Thank you so much. That was a fabulous talk. And my question for you is just in regards to the life sciences. What would you say is the greatest challenge in the life sciences category to keep our future astronauts safe and healthy?
Wow, that's a great question. And of course, I'm not a medical doctor, but I had the privilege of working with doctors when I was on the International Space Station program. So I think from the moon perspective, the lunar perspective, I don't know that it's going to be huge to make them keep them safe and alive. The radiation environment is of course significantly larger in the lunar realm, in the lunar vicinity, because you're outside of the Van Allen belts. So I think radiation will be something, and certainly when you talk about going on to Mars, that's a huge deal. Of course, medical care, emergency medical care will be much, much more difficult when we go to the moon. Even on ISS, we have a ton of equipment, but there are many things that one can't deal with, and you just have to come home. Fortunately, when you're on a space station, you come home and you're probably at a major hospital within a few hours of when the event occurs. When you're on the lunar surface, it's going to be days. So emergency care is another huge area. But really, I think the big thing would be learning what we can on the moon to prepare us to go on even longer journeys, like on to Mars. And so I don't know. I think I'm looking forward to all those issues I talked about: radiation, emergency care, data to go make those decisions, and talent. Being able to train people to go do those things will be huge, and they'll be big on the moon, and they'll be even bigger as we go farther.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience? I do have a question since I've been asking all the guests a question. I'm on a roll now. I'm very curious. So I'm thinking back to my own childhood, and you correct me if I'm wrong. So when I originally thought of space, I'm thinking you needed to be an astronaut. And then maybe in the 80s, you're thinking it's missiles because of the George Bush Star Wars program. But now there's been a big shift. Almost if you're interested in being in the space business, you could be an entrepreneur, a business person, a contractor, a mathematician, a scientist, almost all evolving. Was this, and I know you talked, it got me thinking during your presentation, was this done intentionally to drive recruitment, or because technology has provided us all these extra opportunities, or a mixture of both?
Yeah, I think the biggest reason that you're seeing a lot of other people go to the moon, maybe two reasons. Number one is it's a lot safer. So your odds of survival are much greater today than they were in the past. And then the second is the economies. The economics of traveling into space has changed dramatically. So today it's possible to go up and do a ballistic flight and get a few minutes of zero G and a view of the Earth and seeing the curvature and the deep black of space. And so individuals, I'll say normal individuals, probably individuals of significant wealth, but can do that, or companies can fund people to go do that. So I think that's the really cool thing. The cost has come down. We can share it with everyone. And the what so many people will never go in space. They'll just probably won't. But what we need is to 5 people fly in space and bring it home to them. And that's not just your fighter pilot and your planetary scientists. Those are great people. I love those people. But you need musicians, you need artists, you need authors to go up there and really humanize space. And I think the economy is such that we can really do that here in the very near future. You guys know William Shatner, Star Trek, the guy who became famous for traveling all through space, finally went into space in his 80s. I mean, how cool is that? The fact that you're 80 years old. I'd love to see people with disabilities go into space. The fact that if your legs don't support your weight on Earth, it's irrelevant in space. How cool would that be? So I think we're on the cusp. It's going to happen here very, very soon. We'll have individuals, a lot of individuals going into space.
Sounds awesome. Might be easier to go to space than get from Toronto to Timmins with all the cancellations. Okay, just doing it. Oh, we do have a question. Would you mind coming up to the podium, and we'll allow you to have center stage. We also have a couple Klingons in the audience, and I don't know what their reaction was to Captain Kirk, but are we on good terms with Kirk, or we're on terrible terms with Kirk still? Okay, terrible terms.
I don't speak Klingon, so.
Neither do I. I have a deep question to ask. It's a little bit different, but this is something that's always rattled in my mind. You've mentioned when astronauts go up to space, they see Earth with no borders and no boundaries. But will we ever come to a time where politics and countries will not interfere with exploration? And we'll see ourselves as one big nation, as one big country? If you understand my question.
I do. That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know if that will be. It's a great thought. I do think these large programs, certainly when you talk about sending people to Mars, is probably something the whole world needs to engage in. So my hope is that we could do that on some programs, which could be the kernel, the seed corn of growing a larger peaceful coexistence around the globe. So I do hope that's the case. There are some there are individuals who've actually already started this global space citizenship. There's a group called Asgardia, by the way. You can Google them. you can become a citizen of Asgardia, which is a citizen of space. And it really doesn't have a particular boundary. There are people from all over the world who are engaged. I suspect we'll see more and more of that. So I think that's a great idea, a great movement, and I'm looking forward to seeing how you help develop that. You know, having this dream and then getting out there and making it happen is what really makes it. So I hope you can lead us all to that utopia place.
I wasn't doing my part this Christmas. Santa asked if I wanted peace on earth. I said, no, I'll take a PlayStation. Well, we can wait for peace for another year, but yeah, I agree. I mean, that it would be a beautiful thing.
And the whole thing about peace on earth, I mean, so there's politics, and to some, politics is a bad thing, but sometimes politics is a good thing. I think the International Space Station, part of its endeavor was to help maintain peace on Earth, and you know, here we are, first piece of space station launched in 1998, and it's really helped keep things, it helped bring countries close together in hard times. It's been the kernel that could keep countries together and still cooperate on those in that area. I mean, so I do believe space can be that, can help bring peace on Earth. It won't be space alone, but it can help.
It's a beautiful thing. I'm just doing one last pan of the audience. It looks like no other questions. So I guess thank you so much for spending some time with us virtually here in Timmins. I know you're a big part of the Stardust Festival, and all the organizers and volunteers and everyone in the audience it truly appreciates it. So thank you on behalf of all of us.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause again. Kurt Shireman, VP Lunar Exploration Campaign at Lockheed Martin. As we enjoy our keynote speakers on this fine Sunday, getting set next for Brian Ewenson. He'll be our next guest speaker from aerospace. He's an aerospace educator, consultant, and professional speaker. So we're just going to wait for Brian to get set up here. We'll bring Brian right to the podium.
I think everybody else is live here.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our next keynote speaker here at the Stardust Festival 2023 here at College Royale here in wonderful Timmins. Welcoming to our fine city to be our next guest speaker here this afternoon, Brian Ewenson. Put your hands together. Brian is an aerospace educator, consultant, and professional speaker. He's professionally speaking for you and I here today.
Thank you for inviting me out here today. As alluded to in the introduction, my name is Brian Ewenson, presently an aerospace educator, a consultant to aerospace industry, as well as a professional speaker. We'll go over a little bit more of my background as we move forward. But this is my vision for us today. As an educator, we have a teacher on the moon with 4 students going on what I like to call the ultimate field trip, exploring the universe out there as we go forward. Now, when we look at where we've come in the past 120 years of aviation experience, when we look at Orville and Wilbur Wright's first flights in 1903, when we consider the distance they flew, the height they flew, as well as the width of those wings, that first flight in 1903 could have happened inside the space shuttle's external fuel tank without touching a side. This is where we say we have come a long way in the past 120 years of aviation history. Now, when we actually think about the aviation and aerospace industry, it really is cross-curricular, multi-level. It touches all aspects of the human experience. We think about an airplane, for example, where it flies is geography, how it flies is science, who flies them is history, where they go, as we said, is geography, how they're built is industrial arts, as well as what an airplane costs is economics. So when we look at the entire aspect of aerospace industry, it touches so many different levels of the human experience. Now, when we think about aviation or space in particular, how does space relate to our daily lives? We can talk a little bit about history. We can also talk about reading, literacy. When I worked for NASA in the Space Shuttle program, I had to learn an entire new language called acronyms. I had to learn 22,000 approved 3- and 4-letter words to work in the shuttle program. Basically, I can talk to you in 3- and 4-letter words all afternoon. As well, we talk a little bit about earth sciences. When we explore space, we're not only going outwards to look at other planets, we're going to space to look back and protect our home planet. Fundamental biology, how your body works in space and how it does not work very well in space. A lot of times geography quizzes. There was a very, very interesting comment about not being able to see borders from space. That was not necessarily a lie, but I can tell you, working for the Canadian Space Agency, we don't have a wall between Canada and the United States, but there are areas by how we use the land between Montana and Alberta. We can actually see a physical political boundary between nations by the way we actually do our farming. In Canada, it's called the Système des Rangs, long rectangular farms, and in Montana, it's circular irrigation. So we can actually see the 49th parallel between Canada and the United States, a political boundary by the ways we actually use the land. We also talk a lot about effective use of technology, engineering, as well as mathematics. Now, I really want to talk a little bit about education in the sense of how we teach our youth. I am a classic example of someone who can get 99 in physics and have 34 in math, and actually had to redo my last year of high school before moving onwards. And basically, it was the way that the teacher taught. My physics teacher, growing up in Canada, we don't have lawsuits. We went on the school roof with our textbooks and a stopwatch, threw our textbooks off the second floor of the building, calculated that the gravitational constant's 9.8 meters per second squared. My math teacher, it was a bunch of formulas on the board, with zero relevance to my life. Our physics teacher brought us to the local amusement park, the pool hall for elastic and inelastic collisions, conservation of angular momentum. Learn how I teach, in particular students nowadays, is that hands-on kind of a style. Now, a lot of people say, why do we spend $18 billion a year going to space? Well, we don't actually spend that money going to space. I was one of the 43,000 people working in the space shuttle program that contributed to the program. We have over 2,000 different things that we use in our lives that have a basis or a genesis from the space program. And in particular, the Space Foundation, when we go down there, we see a lot of the actual equipment that shows that. For example, lightweight composite hip replacement, fire-resistant clothing for firefighters, hearing aids. Today, we do need our radiation-blocking sunglasses. Now, NASA did not create Velcro. That was a Swiss mountain climber in 1847. But because we use it all over the spacecraft, it was given the designation as a byproduct of the space program. Now, a good friend of mine at now MDA, formerly Spar Aerospace, Graham Mogg, when we actually did educational events in Montreal with Diana Phillips, who many of you previously met, he called our Space Day education event a learning virus. Not in the negative connotation of a virus, but we were spreading information, news, as well as opportunities around the nation. Now, if you're going to work in the space program, a lot of people say to me, how come you're not an astronaut? I applied twice to our Canadian Space Agency. Over 19,000 people applied for 2 positions. I did not get selected to be an astronaut in either of those selections, but the next best thing is I spent 20 years as an astronaut teacher or a trainer teaching them how to do their work on board the vehicle. But at NASA, we have artists, educators, business folks, contractors, linguists that teach the astronauts the different languages on board the International Space Station, our own fire department, our own police department, EMS, etc. You can still contribute to your nation's space program without having to be the person that sits on top of the rocket and gets blasted into space. Now, don't get me wrong, my bags are packed and I would go in 30 seconds. The big thing at NASA, at the Johnson Space Center, a lot of us had baseball bats at our desks, just waiting for the one astronaut to actually lose his knee a couple of weeks before flight so we could actually fill in and go on that mission. Now, a lot of people say, how did I get involved in the space program? My parents were not engineers, not scientists. My dad served our community well, 35 years as a Montreal police officer. My mom was involved in college admissions, but it was truly a family trip from the Montreal, Quebec, down to the Kennedy Space Center at 4 years old that set us off on our careers. Right here, you see my twin brother and I in front of the Apollo 4 command module. On the right is my twin brother and I in front of the Mercury Atlas vehicle down by Gate 3 at the Kennedy Space Center. But by being exposed to those opportunities, we didn't have Challenger learning centers. When I was growing up, we didn't even have astronauts in Canada or a space program. It was under the National Research Council. But by being exposed to those opportunities, that's where at 4 years old, both my twin brother and I still remember now saying to our parents that we wanted to work with airplanes and spaceships when we grew up. My twin brother is an Air Canada Airbus 330 captain. He gets to fly all over the world. I wanted to fly a little bit higher, go much faster, be on time and not lose your luggage. But I was lucky enough to be able to work both for the Canadian Space Agency and NASA in the Space Shuttle program and early space station program. But you never know what is going to be the motivator that really kicks it off. As I said earlier in that other photo, this is myself and my twin brother at the Kennedy Space Center, and that was the gee whiz moment where I said I wanted to do that when I grew up. The next picture is prior to STS-90. I'm standing on the launch pad with Space Shuttle Columbia prior to one of my 9 experiments being launched into space. And that was coming from Canada with no scientific background, no Challenger Learning Centers, no Space Foundation. It was teachers, parents, and the community motivating us and supporting us to reach those goals. Now, I know this is a little bit dark, but to give you a little bit more of my background as we go forward, as a consultant, I've been lucky enough to serve with a variety of air and space museums across both Canada and the United States. Presently serving as executive director of a spaceport and a museum in Michigan. Anyone here ever been to Sheboygan? Awesome. If you know about anything about Sheboygan, we have 5 world headquarters there. So if you eat Johnsonville broth, if you use Kohler's toilets or generators, Plinko makes all of the shopping carts for Walmart and Target. And we have a number of other organizations there. Bemis actually makes the toilet seats that go on the Kohler toilet bowls. But my background, I have 3 different university degrees. I have a degree in astrophysics, so I am a rocket scientist by trade. I have a degree in American history, political science, international crisis conflict management, and I also have a degree in elementary education. And they seem like very, very broad spectrum of learning. But one of the things I've learned from astronauts, in particular with our space station, is that you need to have a broad background. You can't pigeonhole yourself and become so specific in an area that you don't make yourself marketable. So when we go for funding at NASA for programs, you need to know how government operates, how to be in front of congressmen, congresswomen, and actually be able to tell the story. Astrophysics, I was in the department for rendezvous and proximity operations, using all of that math and angles, teaching the astronauts how to fly the space shuttle. Later on, I also got certified in ECLIS, or Environmental Control and Life Support Systems, on spacesuits. And then my elementary education degree, astronauts are just big kids. That served me well in being able to teach over 71 different astronauts from 16 different nations to do their job in space. Now, as we said a few moments ago, I was lucky enough to work in the Space Shuttle program, rendezvous and proximity ops, operations of the Canadarm, as well as environmental control systems on spacesuits. I've been lucky enough to work, as we said earlier, with about 70 different astronauts from 16 different nations. Getting to work with my heroes, I can't believe I was given the opportunity to do that. I shouldn't have been paid. I should have been paying them for the opportunity to do so. For a period of 5 years, when I was with Lockheed Martin running a aerospace education outreach program, my boss was former US astronaut and Senator John Glenn. And what really grounded me in my career, when I first met John Glenn at the Johnson Space Center, I was like, Colonel, Senator, he's like, just call me John. I'm like, dude, you're in the history books. I can't just call you John. We settled on sir out of respect. But what he said to us is, he said, you know, I am no greater than any one of you working here at the Space Center. We are a team, and we can't get into space, do our jobs, nor get back safely without all of you doing your job. And that really grounded me for my career. At NASA, we have a lot of people not necessarily running over each other to get the job done. We are all focused on the mission. People are there to support each other and get it done effectively. Now, back in the old days of the space program, the astronauts were fighter pilots, test pilots, all male, had to be within a certain height. One of the great things about the space program now is that we actually have not only people from around the world, but we have men, women, people from a variety of backgrounds. But the one neat thing about them is you realize that they're just regular persons like you. They have families, they have goals. One of my really good friends, he will let you know, he is still the first and only and ever astronaut from Nebraska. Clayton Anderson, if you want to talk about perseverance and continuing forward, he applied to NASA 15 times before he was selected for the astronaut program. So perseverance and pushing forward. Now, being up here in Timmins, we're dealing a lot with the local community, and I love the fact that we're able to work with the Indigenous people, or First Nations as we call them in Canada. I was lucky enough to work with John Harrington, a Chickasaw Nation. When I was operating and working out in Wyoming, we were lucky enough to have the Lakota elders come out with John, as well as the local astronomers, and we could actually do the lore of the sky from the native perspective, as well as the scientific background as well. And recently, of course, Nicole Apuno-Mon went into space. I was lucky enough to be in Montreal, Quebec, my hometown, speaking on the Mohawk Reservation in Montreal. And we actually had first graders come up to me with letters for Nicole, and they're like, we're not sure how we can actually get this to her. I said, well, I'm going to be in Houston at a conference in February. I will bring this to her, and they could actually see both emotionally, physically, that they had someone that not only looked like them, but had a lot of the same experiences. So being able to tie those communities together is a very, very honorable and wonderful thing to be able to get to do. And some of our Canadian astronauts, we were the first to have our own personal patches. So we're actually lucky enough with Bob Thirst's 3 flights to actually have Canadian native artists actually imbue some of their history, the eagles, the eagle feather, the sun, the totem poles, into their personal patches. So it's something that runs very, very deep in the Canadian psyche and history, is that we actually recognize our First Nations and we're able to actually integrate them into our society. Now, one of the things about being with astronauts is you are ultimately responsible for their lives. It is a very, very humbling job, and you get to know these people individually. I was lucky enough to spend 2.5 years training the crew of Space Shuttle Columbia's final with a 5th grade experiment from Hagerstown, Maryland on board. And we were actually incredibly blessed to spend time with that crew. And definitely the darkest day in my career was losing 7 good friends. And many times we actually have people that say, you know, was NASA negligent? Did anyone go to jail for that? I said, well, you imagine even last night, we're 20 plus years since that accident. Imagine going to bed every night asking yourself, did you make the small incremental mistake that killed your friends? We definitely did not do that negligently or on purpose, but this is a business that is very, very unforgiving. The silver lining about our actual experiment, it actually survived the accident and landed in Nacogdoches, Texas, at Ken's Mini Mart parking lot. After the investigation, we were able to bring it back and refurbish it, and to show those students that were in 5th grade that we have to continue to forge forward. NASA allowed us to refly that experiment on STS-118. Those students were now in grades 8 or 9, and this actual astronaut who then performed their experiment in space was the first teacher in space, Barbara Morgan. So we have to continue to forge forward. But one of the things I like at the Kennedy Space Center, the Atlas or Atlantis exhibit, is these posters here from our fellow workers. This is a young lady that I worked with. She was in the OPF, the Orbiter Processing Facility. We were a family of ordinary people who teamed up and did something extraordinary. I don't consider myself a superstar or a part of history, but just having been able to be a part of the space program and contribute to multiple nations' history, that is something that I will take with me for the rest of my life. The International Space Station, as we know, is in its 25th year in orbit, 23 years with people on board. The last date that all living human beings were together on Earth was November 2nd of the year 2000. Since then, there's always been at least someone on board the International Space Station at all times. We're going to use that space station through the year 2030, and NASA is going to go on and do other things. Once again, what I really like about the space program is that it is a true international partnership, bringing people from around the world together with a common vision and goal. We're going to return to the moon, and as a Canadian, I'm extremely happy to see that part of the Artemis Accords, Canada is going to play a critical role, and we will actually make history. We were lucky enough to be down at the launch in November of 2022 of the first unmanned flight, and as we go forward, we're going to go forward with these 4 explorers, including Jeremy Hansen from Canada, and I just wanted to give you, as we say, a little bit of the background from my point of view as an educator, is that you guys are the heroes out there educating the next generation of explorers, and to be a part of that is something that I'm incredibly indebted to all of you for what you do out there as well. So thank you so much, and hopefully you learned a little bit about Canada's role in space. I don't know if anyone has any questions, but I know a couple of you. Thank you.
No questions? Anybody? No? All good?
Good.
All good.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you. Okay. I'll take that off. Thank you, buddy. All right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, once again, put your hands together for Brian Hewitson, aerospace educator, consultant, and professional speaker here, part of the Stardust Festival this week. So we're going to take a quick break and be back with Dr. Mohammed Sharif, our next keynote speaker, in a few moments here. So just hang tight, we'll be right back.
Okay, buddy. Yeah. We'll get you hooked up here.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our next keynote speaker of the afternoon here, the Stardust Festival 2023 here in wonderful Timmins. Big round of applause for Jason Michaud and all his hardworking volunteers working behind the scenes, working tirelessly and putting this amazing event on here in Timmins this week. Next keynote speaker. Hope you're ready for a great presentation. We're going to be greeted with Dr. Mohammed Sharif from Ixico. Icisco. So here he is, Dr. Mohammed Sharif. Everybody, put your hands together.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And I would say I'm really honored, privileged to be here with you in front of my wonderful friends, colleagues. And I am thankful to Jason and Shelley Brunswick, because Shelley Brunswick is very good in connecting the people, you know. And she connected me to Jason, and Jason invited here. And this is really the pleasure to be here to talk about our organization, what we are doing, what is the relationship of ICISCO to the space. I listened a couple of stories, I mean more than a couple of stories yesterday from the two Steves, the wonderful stories from the two different backgrounds. One is, child abuse survivor. One is coming from a wonderful family, and then how they traveled from their background to the space. It was really inspiring. And this young lady, who was 21 years old, and then she is progressing and advancing in this area. I was listening these all stories that the people are talking about the space economy, space shuttle, rovers going to the moon. And then I was thinking about the people I'm representing, my organization represent, or the working. I mean, the countries you might have not heard of. You don't know that where does this country exist. What about those people who have not heard? So my organization is working to make them aware about this cutting edge technologies, this advancement in the world, particularly in the space science here. So we are really very thankful, grateful to the Space Foundation, especially the Shelley Brunswick, that she brought us to this area, and then we started this awareness program. Let me give you a very brief introduction of my organization, and then I would share with you what we are doing to advance or to educate the people in the impoverished countries or the underprivileged, marginalized the people in Africa and also in Asia. I come from Pakistan. I was born in Pakistan, raised in Germany, doing the job in the Gulf. I've worked in Qatar, Oman, Saudi Arabia, and now I'm in Morocco. I am advisor of science and technology at ICISCO. ICISCO stands for Islamic World Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. You can consider it like a UNESCO of the Islamic world. We represent 54 countries. We are a specialized organization from the OIC, is organization of the cooperation, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. So we, as I told you, that this name, the ICISCO, comes from the Islamic world, so means that we represent the Islamic countries, but it is not really limited to represent or to work for the Islamic countries. This argument We have the ministerial meetings. We have the cultural ministers, environmental ministers, science ministers, and education ministers, where we regularly hold the meetings and discuss about the country's need, and also the new technologies which can be disseminated to our member countries. So why we hold these conferences or these meetings? These meetings always have something, the recommendations, and on the base of those recommendations, we have 16 sector-specific strategies and 6 action plans that came out of that, with 18 declarations and 3 commitments. Now, this is something which I told you about the organization and giving the scholarships, the trainings, the awareness programs. This is what we are doing in the science sector. This is one of the sectors. And our action plan includes the scientific, the forums, conferences, the entrepreneurship, the establishment of the incubators and accelerators. I would talk a little bit about that. That we started also one program is called Access Accelerator Program, where we train the people, or we arrange the trainings from the different the international experts to prepare the young students to have their own business and entrepreneurship. In the last 2 years, we did this training in 20 countries, training the like 1,000 the students or the young entrepreneurs. Then we have the Health and Hygiene Environment Consortium, the professional training events we do, science and research chairs. We established 30 chairs in different areas. The chair on, for example, on organ, the digitization, chair on AI and women in AI, and the chair, now we are going to establish one chair on space science applications at ISU, the International Space University in France. So yesterday I was listening Shelley's the talk. So she told us that this is 5 steps that how to work. Yeah. So how we implement, we have the 3. I will now incorporate the 2 from you. Yeah. So we work through the 3 A's. I normally share with my audience that it is awareness, then is acceptance, and then action. So this is how we are working in science and technology sector. So the awareness, we go through like summits, we organize the conferences, we organize the symposiums, webinars, and then the acceptance, we see it through our memorandum of agreements, memorandum of understandings, or intent of the cooperation. So in space, and we entered to the space science applications awareness programs. So for that, first we did some symposias, some conferences, and when it is accepted by our own people and also by the others, then we entered to the different memorandum of agreements. We did with Milo Space Institute, the agreement for the space science, the training programs, the certification programs, the agreement with World Business Angel Investment Forum, where we have already got the training for the QBAC+1 for the angel investors program in the member countries, and now the second phase is on the way. And then we have the agreement with the Higher Education Commission, Pakistan, with the more than 300 universities. By the way, we have also one federation of the universities, our headquarters, where we have 460 universities on our panel. Then we did also the agreements with with Uganda for the sanitation and the drinkable, providing the drinkable water for the schools, rural schools, and with the Baku State University. Then we had one of the first memorandum of agreement understanding with Space Foundation back in 2021. So here, this is a picture. And we have also with the National University of Science and Technology. So we agree, we entered into the agreement just a couple of months before to work in the space science application awareness programs. Then we had with the Space Foundation, the MOU, and then we entered into this agreement. Now we have already done one agreement with the Space Foundation. We'll be delivering the coursework, certification program for our member countries, and I'm sure that many hundreds of students, they will be benefited from this program. Then now, how we came to the space science. So it was the international symposium on space science importance, challenges, and emerging opportunities in space industry in Islamic world. We did it with the Space Foundation and on the suggestion of the Shelley Brunswick and Space Foundation. And you will be surprised that we invited, it was a pandemic time, we invited from our member countries, all the ambassadors in Morocco, from all the countries, like 200 missions we invited, and then like 60, 70%, they were there. And then we also invited the students, the presidents of the universities, the politicians, the ministers, and then we just presented to them that what are the opportunities, what can be achieved, or what can be the application of the space sciences in different areas. So this was our first. And then within the 4 months, then we went to our flagship program. We call it a Global Space Science Forum. In the Global Space Science Forum, 43 space agencies represented in person and also virtually. The UAE Space Agency had, Bangladesh Space Agency had, the Chief Operating Officer of Saudi Space Commission. In person, they came. Mr. Shelley Brunswick was there. Former President of Mali was there. So, and then we did it, and now we will be doing it that biennial basis. Here, and then after this, we said, okay, now this is the awareness. Up till now, we have done the awareness. Now the people are accepting it. So we entered into the training programs. Now we are getting also the questions from our ministers that what the scientific organization has to do with the space science. We are trying to convince them, and we have convinced them that it is a science. Yeah? So it should be also presented and make available for the students in our countries. So then we started the model satellite, CANSAT, the training workshops and aerospace symposium. We started it from Rabat in 2022. It is in July 2022, we did it. And again, you will be surprised that we had here the astronaut, Jan Proctor was there, astronaut Wrangler, the Christina, Shelley Brunswick, the former president of Mali, and the 5 ministers from Morocco and from Burkina Faso. I hope that you have heard also the Burkina Faso is a country in Africa inside. So, and there we made this open call for all member countries. And then from 20 countries, from Dar es Salaam, Brunei, Palestine, Yemen, Pakistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, students came from there for this training. We arranged the trainers from Turkey, from Istanbul Technical University, to give the training how to build a CANSAT, what are the functions, how the satellite look like, what is a satellite. So this was like 1 week training to these the students. And then we took them to the mountains, in the Atlas Mountains, where they did the launch with the drone. So we were having many problems, many difficulties, limitations, but at the end, the Miss Shelley Brunswick is witnessed. So, but we actually did it. So here are some glimpses from our these two training workshops. Then, in a time of 6 months, because education minister of Burkina Faso, Professor Otara, he's a astrophysicist. You know, that was his interest. He came from all the way from Burkina Faso to Rabat. He stayed in the training for 7 days, and then he said, I want to do it in my country. So, okay, if ISIS is going to support research, of course we are going to support. And the Director General asked him that he should arrange also the students or the participants who are interested in this the field from the neighboring countries. So he arranged the participants from 7 neighboring countries of Burkina Faso. Then the training was done in Burkina Faso, and then we really observed that they were the best students, the very much interested to understand, to know that what are the possibilities, what are the opportunities, and then well prepared students from these countries. Anyways, this was the second one, what we did there. This is the training workshop. I want to just show you the short video that we compiled on these two training programs, if I can.
We at ACES, we're leveraging upon aerospace technologies and innovation, including advanced manufacturing and digitization as key drivers to enhance the competitiveness in our member state. We must be part of the space ecosystem. It is the future.
This international symposium, aerospace symposium and CANSET workshop, which is the first aerospace symposium at ISESCO. And we have gathered actually the trainees and participants from more than 20 countries from our member states. And for the speakers to bring its importance about the awareness that what CANSET is or what are the applications of the space sciences.
It's a one-week program starting with informing the audience about the developments, recent developments regarding space and space technology. And then what we did during this training, well, the content of the training is actually to present the life cycle of a space system to the trainees so that they really know what the space system is, how it is operate, what data can get from them, and how they can use it.
كيف يشتغل القمر الصناعي اللي هو كذا واحد دور مهم جدا في مجال الاتصالات واللي معظم الدول ديال العالم كتستخدم الاقمار الصناعيه. قمنا بالبرمجه ديال القمر الصناعي اللي هي واحد التجربه غنيه جدا واستفدنا منها. كذلك قمنا مع مجموعه من الاطر اللي كاينين في العالم واشتغلنا يعني كفريق واحد من اجل بناء هذا المشروع اللي هو مشروع ديال القمر الصناعي كنسات وعرفنا كيفاش كيشتغل.
Burkina Faso se réjouit de cette collaboration qui est vraiment de qualité et qui permet, à travers les symposiums, les ateliers, les projets qui sont financés par l'ISESCO, la formation de la jeunesse burkinabé et qui est bien sûr le cheval pour son développement économique, social et politique. C'est un symposium qui va permettre aux jeunes chercheurs renforcer nos compétences dans le domaine des sciences spatiales.
Thank you. So this was the two training, the workshops and the aerospace symposium in Burkina Faso and in Rabat. Then we moved this year, just 3 weeks ago, to Turkey. So we did again this and a third ISSO aerospace symposium and CANSET training workshop, where like from 27 countries, the different batch of the students, the different participants from 27 countries, we brought them to the Turkey, Istanbul Technical University. And our respected Ms. Shelley Brunswick was with us. This is Jan Proctor, with the astronaut. And we had, Jan Proctor was in person there. Then we had also the video message from the Catherine Thornton, the former chairman, the chairman of the board of Space Foundation, and the several others. So the Pakistan Space Agency was there, Turkish Space Agency was in person there, and also the former president of Mauritius. She also joined us. She is the advocate of the women and girls in science. So you will ask me why we are bringing the ministers or the prime ministers or the presidents of the countries. We are bringing them because these are the people who are the policymakers or the influencers, who are actually the lobbyists. When they are convinced that this is important for the country, for the students, then we think that we are on the right path and we are on the right way to convince the country or the education ministries and also others to fund and also to take care of these endeavors in their countries. So we try to take them always on board and then bring them to our programs. So then we had this, and even the former Minister of Education from Burkina Faso, he joined us there in Turkey as well. And these are the glimpses from the training. So it was like 4 days the training in Istanbul Technical University, and then we took the people from Istanbul to Aksaray, which is like 1,000 kilometers, 900 kilometer. So there was the launch pad from the rocket scene, and then this time we did with the rocket. I will show you this the video. So this is during they were preparing their. So this is the last slide from this. I will just show you. It is 50 seconds, I think. Thank you. So actually, this is what we are doing. I mean, we started like 2 years before. I mean, it is 1.5 years actually for this training workshops. So this is the how we are creating the workforce for tomorrow. Other day, I was talking with Robert, and I said, when we are creating the workforce, developing the workforce, this is for the countries actually, because when they get this training, they are misfit there, so they will advance their career to the developed countries. So this is the workforce. This is how we are thinking for the people in impoverished regions or the marginalized regions. This is how we are bringing this awareness through your partnership, through your and with your help. And now we are here. I'm really happy, Jason, that you're doing this. And then I talked with the Jason. I said, the next year, if you would be able to, the host, I can send the 50 people from the member countries to attend and to take part in your program. Interestingly, the General Vital from this also connection from the Space Foundation, General Vital was with us in Turkey, and then he said, if we can do the same, the aerospace symposium and the training workshop for the ISESCO member countries in Brazil. So now we are planning. It is actually halfway that we have already planned. In March, we will do the program, bringing like 60 to 70 students, the people who are really inspired by the space, to get this training from the different countries to the Brazil. And we started with the drone, going up to 120 meters or 200 meters, then up to 300 meters. And this time, just recently we did with the rocket. Now we are planning to do the rockets, which will go over like 2.3 kilometer to 30 kilometer. So it is like going into the stratosphere. So this would be a new experience for the people. And as I mentioned, when we were the Burkina Faso, I have never seen that much excitement in the students as it was in Burkina Faso. And they were the best minds. So if those students, the Cameroon, Gabon, then they go back, they talk with the others, and then they become the interested. And then the next time it will come the different people. So this is how we are working, and we are trying, and we need your support. I mean, when I ask for the support, we don't need the money. We don't ask for the sponsorships or something. We need your expertise. We need the information, what you have, the knowledge sharing, your presence. And then your presence is also sponsored by us. We will try our best, and we try our best to give you the hospitality, to give you the best during your stay with us, or your lectures during your visit in different countries. This was the one part, and then we have the several other initiatives. We have started ISESCO Hub, as I mentioned, to train, and then we put also one vertical. Now it's a space science applications vertical among our other verticals. We are also establishing the quantum computing labs in different countries, starting from Sudan. Now the situation is not good in Sudan, but we are going to do soon in other countries. Then we are also partnering and sponsoring the different space agencies, the programs on disaster management, deforestation, the drone technologies. So this is what we are doing, our part. Thank you very much for listening and then having patience. Yeah. Thank you very much. If you have any questions. Yeah, right.
Any questions?
Yes. Maybe you can shout. Yeah, I need my.
Here we go. Yeah, that's it. Gentleman over here.
Thank you very much. That's pretty amazing. You're willing to bring 50 people to future Stardust Festival. Could you please just walk us through the certification you mentioned? Like the students would be certified, but like, what does that mean? Like, what does space certification mean from your perspective?
Thank you very much. Those are the programs, actually. This is the program Inspiring Through Space. For example, Space Foundation is going to offer this program for like 8 to 12 weeks program, where these students will be given different the background and the coursework about the rocketry or the space science. And then this 8 to 12 weeks program, when the people will get this program, after finishing the program, they will get the certificate from the Space Foundation, from the Center of Innovation, I believe. And the same is with the Milo Space Institute. We have done, I mean, we are in the final stage of agreement that they will offer programs. This is short-term programs, this awareness programs, and some training programs. With some of them will be the online. Students will get also the certificate from the concerned institute. That was I wanted to comment.
Any other questions? Here we go.
I haven't quite got the voice of Mark Kingsman here, but I think it'll carry. Great job that you're doing. It sounds like you're doing quite a bit of good work with the research development, that sort of thing. It occurred to me as you were speaking that your member countries are uniquely set with their geographic location to offer advantages to space companies. Just as an example, the most efficient place to launch on the Earth is along the equator, and it seems like a lot of your countries are there. Do you have any memorandums of understanding, any agreements set up with things like NASA, Canadian Space Agency, European Space Agency, even companies like SpaceX or Virgin Galactic? Do you have anything set up with any concrete examples like that?
Unfortunately, not, because we are very new in this area. We just started 2 years before, and as an organization, I mean, it is just we are learning. It's 2 years that we are now trying to convince our member countries. So my point, when we started this program about the space science applications, can you believe there are the universities, there are the countries, they have never heard about the space science application of space science. If you will ask them that, do you have any discipline in your university, even the universities which are very advanced universities, do you have some GIS, the department, or anything which is being done about the space you're doing? You will not find it, even in the whole country. So our objective was to convince the education system, the higher education commissions, the university grants commission, at least to set up aeronautical universities, aerospace universities, starting from the departments. So this was actually, or this is, and then we are working on it to make them aware that where the world is and then where you are. So we are lagging far behind. I mean, not we, I mean, there are the countries. So this is actually, there are our member countries who might be having this, the memorandum of agreements or MOUs, like Azerbaijan, or I would say the UAE is the member country. In our member countries also, there there are extremes. Some countries are really, I mean, marginalized, the poor, and then some like UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, they are, I mean, far advanced. So coming back to your question, no, as I said, we don't have, but it's quite possible in the coming years. But we are, I mean, approaching like with Blue Origin, with Lockheed Martin, with the jury, we have had a couple of meetings in previous years. We have met Lisa Campbell also from the Canadian Space Agency, and how they can, I mean, support. But I have, I don't know, I go with my intuition. Yeah, I started this because of this, the beautiful young lady, and he inspired us that we should work in this area. So first, we wanted to do something that in a couple of years we can come back to this the big company and say, hey guys, look, this we have done, and now you the next level.
So these are your future plans, that the direction you're looking at going?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. I wish you well.
We want to create as much as we can tomorrow. I should share with you. There was chairman of the Bangladesh Space Agency with us, and he said, "I have 62 positions in my agency, and I put. Trust me, I'm not finding a single of for one position in a whole of my country." So this is what we really hear. I mean, you people are doing a great job. You are working through the Stardust or for the children, you know. You will be having this workforce. And the same we need to do for these countries so that the students or the children, they can own this area, and only the chemistry, physics, biology, but even they go for the physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics. I'm basically chemist, so it is interdisciplinary now. Space is directly related.
Good luck to you. I wish you well.
Thank you very much, sir.
We got another question down here.
Thank you. In the case of Ecuador, for example, we have that English is very difficult for some people to access and learn. How do you manage the language barriers among so many different countries, and what best practices can you share in this case to get to the most number of students involved? Thank you.
Thank you very much. You know, it's very interesting. We have the country, when the people speak Berber, French, Arabic, the English, and there are some the local languages, for example. So our organization, we have 3 official languages, this is working languages: English, French, and Arabic. Okay. So when we do this, the activities, definitely. For example, we did one activity, international training in scientific publication and patent. Right. 14,000 were the participants. 14,000, because we had some very good the trainers, the lawyers. And then we had a problem. I mean, they are from the different countries. We have very well established the translation sector. We have the translators, the best translators in 3 to 5 languages. So we do, we provide this facility during our programs. Yeah. So when we go to the country, then we try that we have the trainers who speak their language. Yeah. So either French or English or Arabic. So this is how we do.
Any more questions?
If there is no question, I would also say I have the one plaque for my friend Jason. I would like to give him from my organization. So this is. Thank you very much, Jason. Thank you. Thank you. You're doing a great job. Yeah. Thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Mohammed and Shara from Mexico. And coming up next, our next keynote speaker, Paul Messier from the Royal Canadian Air Force 7 Wing is in the building. We'll be chatting with Paul in just a few moments here, so just hang tight as we continue along with the Stardust Festival right here at Palais Boreal. All right, ladies and gentlemen, time for our next Stardust presentation and keynote speaker here at College Boreal. Once again, welcoming some new faces to the seats. Welcome to Stardust. Welcome to Timmins. Seeing all sorts of new faces who are saying they're having such a wonderful time in our lovely city this week. And again, this is the first time that the Stardust Festival has been showcased in Timmins. So welcome each and every one of you. And again, our next keynote speaker talking to all these amazing folks, talking space and innovative ideas. We're going to be in for a treat here with Paul Messier, ladies and gentlemen, from the Royal Canadian Air Force, 7 winning out of Ottawa.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank Jason and his team for inviting us down again this year. I know I was actually slated to come last year, but it was during our move from Colorado Springs to Ottawa, and I didn't end up being able to come down. So it is an absolute pleasure to be able to come down and speak to everyone in the room and online and represent what 3 Canadian Space Division and 7 Wing Space Operations are kind of bringing to Canada and what space is in Canada. So my background has no technical space stuff in it, period. I kind of fell into space by accident as part of my occupation with the RCAF. My whole idea of space as a kid was just laying, on your back on the ground, growing up on the farm and watching the stars, and that was about all I knew about space. Hey, something moved. I had no idea about satellites. So it's been a learning experience. So I actually was a commercial cook. That was what I did when I was growing up. I went to school as a commercial cook and meat cutter. But the restaurant business is not very friendly if you don't continue with a lot of money and travel. So that didn't work out. So I got into the paper industry for a lot of years, about eight or 9 years, worked in the paper mills in Vancouver and around Toronto. And guess what? The paper industry back in the late 90s didn't do so well at all. So when we were on our last legs of what to do, I put out an application to the Vancouver Police Department and as well to the Canadian Armed Forces, and guess who called first? So here I am. So by trade, I am an aerospace control operator, directing air traffic, identifying air traffic, and working with that sort of stuff. As I got a little bit further into my career, I also worked as a weapons director tech, so fighter control of our fighter aircraft, which is where I started realizing that link and communications and all that stuff becomes very, very important. While I was posted in North Bay is where I did most of that. Spent 5 years working in the underground complex in North Bay before we moved above ground. Ended up in Winnipeg after that, working in the new Combined Air Operations Center that we were setting up there in 1 Canadian Air Division, which is where I ended up taking a 1-week course that the Air Force was running at the time called the Space Applications Course. These are actually what satellites are, and we actually use them. So that was my introduction to space. Not long after that, I was offered a chance to go and work down in the US. We have a really great partnership between Canada and the US when it comes to space. And I was offered a position down working in Cavalier Air Force Station in North Dakota, working the ground radar systems in North Dakota. So went and did that for a couple of years. And man, talk about a learning curve when you get into working with that kind of stuff. Identification, when you're talking conjunction of satellites in space and all that kind of stuff. It was a massive learning curve for me, but it was definitely worthwhile. So that was a couple of years. And then from there, went to Denver, Colorado, and got into what they were doing down there, which is space-based infrared, identification of any kind of infrared on the planet, basically, which was a great 4 years. That was a fantastic opportunity to learn exactly what Canada gleans and the benefits that we get working in collaboration with the US and what they can do. From there, had a chance to go up to what is now Barker College up in Winnipeg, and was teaching actually across the Canadian Forces the basic space operations course and the space operations course, which is, Canada's military has not always jumped on the bandwagon as far as space goes and what space can do for the forces. Hey, we get down in the trenches, we do what we do, and we go home. And it has taken a long time for the forces to get on board and actually realize what space can do for them. And that's what we've been doing the last few years in getting much more educated in what space does and what it can bring home for our forces that are deployed in operations around the globe. From there, was able to go back to Colorado Springs and work with the missile and space guys there, again under NORAD, in Peterson Air Force Base, as well as in Cheyenne Mountain a little bit, which was another amazing opportunity to learn kind of more about what space does, how we collaborate, be able to bring that stuff home. Now, coming home was, like I mentioned before, 3 Canadian Space Division is brand new. I used to be Director General Space, and now has transitioned as of July of last year to a brand new RCAF Space Wing, 7 wing. Falls under 3 Canadian Space Division, which we are all in Ottawa. And we are trying to kind of bring together all the units within the CAF that do electronic warfare, link, kind of exploitation of space, all that kind of stuff, and bring it under one roof. Bring it all under one roof. All the training, all the collaboration, working with outside agencies, because as you know, it is a lot more economical to work with outside agencies, commercially and private, than to try and fund it through the military, because we're not very good at making wise choices sometimes when it comes to money. So this is what we're doing, and kind of what I was expecting to come here was to see what's out there, to see some of the collaboration that we will be able to do down the road with commercial companies to leverage the needs of the military from what a lot of the different companies are able to bring to the table when it comes to imagery and tactical and operational use of those capabilities. So that is kind of like my background, which is not a whole lot of space to the technical side of it. But what I would like to kind of bring here is kind of highlight is what Jason, that I didn't even know this was. I mean, when we were kids, you didn't have weekends where you would come out and go to an exhibit like this, where there's so many professionals talking about space and what space can do and what our next generation of kids are going to bring to the table. And it is incredible to see the next generation being excited about space and the rocketry next door. When I was over next door talking to some of the teams that are bringing these rockets that are going to launch, I mean, it's incredible to watch the excitement that they have from doing those sorts of things. And that was a lot of what I wanted to come here and say, that it is incredible to see the next generation of kids that are going to be leading us to the capabilities that we haven't dreamed of before. And a big shout out, I know he talks about our Canadian astronaut. He was former RCAF, so I had to put that little plug in for the RCAF. I did not have a lot of PowerPoint slides or anything today. I was just coming out to kind of speak about where I came from, which was nothing to see where someone who can literally get into space and start working, learning, teaching space. When they asked me to go and teach, I was like, whoa, you want me to teach space? I was quickly running outside to the ice cream truck to get one of those 3-colored jet pops and binge watch Jetsons for the weekend to try and figure out what I was going to talk about. So it's been a steep learning curve for me. I know RMC now has an incredible space and physics degree that a lot of folks are getting into space and being within the military. So it's still, it's very cool to see this new generation of folks getting into space, being excited about it, and being able to hopefully round up some of those kids who want to have a career within the military, but still be able to do exactly what they love, if that's what they want to be in. So I don't have a huge speech, and I know it's almost break time, but any questions for me? Go ahead.
When you were little, what did you think you were going to be when you grew up? What did
When
you want to be?
When I was young, I was very, very excited about being a cook. I used to run trap lines and skinning and cooking, and that was my thing. It never actually panned out because it was I did not have the money to keep educating to do cooking and travel and go overseas. So yeah, it never panned out. But that was the plan. It was to be a world famous chef. It's, I can still cook. I'm a heck of a baker, though. I'm a heck of a baker. I should have brought some.
Anybody else have any questions for Paul?
So I am also new to space, and you said it was a steep learning curve for you. So what were some of the techniques that you've used for learning things and becoming, I guess, comfortable enough to even teach it? Because you have to be pretty good at something to teach it.
So that's another nice thing about the military is we tend to work in teams a lot. So even though I didn't join till I was 31, by the time I got into space and started learning about space and tried to memorize a lot of things, you're in your 40s. Guess what? Your mind doesn't memorize things as well in your 40s as it does in your 20s. So you leverage the team around you, right? You rely on all those different people and what they bring to the table and learn how to use what they know and make it relevant so that you remember and learn and put new ideas in your head by leveraging what other people, how they learn and steal those ideas and use them a little bit. Does that make any sense? But it is a very team-oriented learning environment for me. I don't memorize things very well. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Oh, we got one over here.
You said growing up, obviously, you didn't know a lot about space. Your perspectives would have changed now being more in the space industry. How, like, has your view of space changed at all from being in like your Air Force perspective, and then vice versa? Has your Air Force perspective changed at all now being more involved with space?
It has. So even when I first was working as an aerospace control operator, a lot of what I was doing was watching screens, identifying, targeting, some communications. Of course, you're doing a lot of communications. You're talking to people on the ground, people in the centers. You're talking to your pilots. Now I'm starting to, a lot of what we're doing is more getting into teaching environments, how to deal and work in degraded environments, which is a lot of what we're getting into and training now is reaching out to the different elements, the Army, the Navy, different departments in the Air Force, and showing them what we can bring to the table as far as teaching their folks to work in an environment where maybe the conditions aren't ideal. So that is a lot of the collaboration that we're doing and trying to come up with the training and the people to make that happen. We've been able to work with the Army quite well. It's a little bit different when you're working with the Air Force because of the safety factors, and it's a little different. But down the road, that's going to be a big part of what we do, is working in degraded environments.
Thank you.
We got another question over here.
My wife questions.
Well, I'm excited because he's actually going to tell me the truth today. So my question is, do you promote recruitment mostly from within, or has space become so big that you recruit space military from outside? What would you think is the bigger draw?
So I don't think that a lot of folks know that the Canadian military is getting involved in space. It's still very small. We've been doing it for a while, but most of it has been done in collaboration with the US, right? We rely on them because we don't have a lot of our own capabilities. We have Sapphire, so we're getting involved in some of that stuff. What are we going to do in the future? There's follow-on systems. We're trying to get our own military communication system, satellites, our own imagery satellites. But that takes time, and it's a lot of money. What we are trying to do, not necessarily recruit, but is to let people know that if they want to join the forces, but they want to do space, that capability is going to be there and available for people who want to do space propulsion systems, you name it, building different types of CubeSats. We are getting involved in that, and that is stuff that they can bring to the table, not necessarily me, but down the road, there is going to be that opportunity, and we're expanding and growing constantly. We're very small. We started last year. I think the entire space division was only around 80 people. And since we've stood up 3 Canadian Space Division and 7 Wing, we're pushing into the 160, 170 range and growing fairly quickly. And we are starting to open up a lot of positions, bringing in more civilian contractors, as well as incorporating reserve forces as well, just to give more people the opportunity to do it, not necessarily be a Reg Force member and be stuck doing a 20-year career. You can still work with us and have that opportunity, but not be military. Does that answer the question, baby?
Yes. I never know.
Anybody have any more questions for Paul? Going once, going twice. Once again, a big round of applause for Paul Messier.
Thank you so much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Paul Messier from the Royal Canadian Air Force, 7 Wing, out of Ottawa. As we continue along with our keynote speakers, we're going to take a few minutes here. We've got Danny Jacques from Danny's Rocket Ranch coming up as your next keystone speaker here this afternoon. He's in the NASA Guard. We're going to be chatting with Danny Jacques very soon, so hang tight, grab a drink, be right back, and we've got Danny coming right. All right, you can get right in there. All right. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's just get his PowerPoint ready to roll, and then we'll get him mic'd up here. Hang on here. Right.
Tell me what to do. Show me the way.
Show you the way.
Yes, clicker would be a wonderful.
The clicker over here. Clicker. Oh, maybe I'll introduce Danny. All right, buddy. Put me to work. It's hard to get the mic off his head.
Hang on, let's grab this.
You love the mic?
Hang on, we're gonna just do. Here you go, bud. All right, buddy. Have a good presentation.
We'll see what we can do.
Finally got the microphone off, Ken. You give it to me at the end of the day where people are tired. Thanks a lot. I gotta say, I love this talk about space. I'm not gonna go into my stand-up comedy, but just for a second, you know, when I was in high school, and if I mentioned Star Wars, that equaled in the locker and wedgie. Then Robert Downey Jr. came out as Iron Man, and that was the cool thing. But even though I'm not in the space business, I feel like I'm with my people these last few days. This is awesome. You didn't save me from a wedgie in '86, but nonetheless, I'm loving being here, and I love it, especially the passion and everyone's personalized experiences. That's cool. So, next guest. First of all, he gave us some coffee, Kinsman. So if you bribe us, you get a real good introduction. Coming all the way down to the stage here, Jenny John from Danny's Rockin' Ranch. Yeah. There it is. All right. There you go.
Thanks, Danny.
Really love this.
We appreciate you.
Now I've heard of these guys. We're down there when he said Kins and Klomp are going to be there. I had to look them up, but I goes, oh, I've seen these guys. So it's really cool here. Well, I'm Danny. I come from Ignacio, Colorado. I'm a former teacher. I say educator, spent 36 years in the classroom. 31 years ago, I started taking kids to space camp, and you guys are going to be real lucky because people left because everybody's going to leave here with something today. 31 years ago, I started taking kids to space camp. I saw what it did for the kids. And as I was exiting out being a classroom teacher, I said, I want to continue to start helping kids and continue to go to space camp. I'll get my clicker here. We'll just go through this real quick. Make sure I do it correctly. And if you have any questions, think them up. Now, this was primarily made for the space campers. I just talked to a bunch of space campers just 2 weeks ago, seeing what they're going to do. So who has been to space camp? Do we have any space campers in here? We do. So Princess Leia can tell us what you want to do. But this is a picture of actual Bertha Estes rocket. I launched it at about 6,000 feet in elevation over my ranch. So the ranch behind it. So I just thought it made it kind of a cool picture. So we are going for a launch. But if you're going to space camp, there's some things that you should think about. Now, we know we're going back. This Artemis the SLS is an awesome vehicle. I tried to go down there and see it in August, but didn't make it. But I know some people here that did get to see it in November. We're going to go on to Mars. It's just a matter of time. And then we're going to go to the stars. I love the saying ad astra. A lot of us here put ad astra on everything because we are going to the stars. We are Stardust. From Stardust we came, and from Stardust we'll return. Now, space camp overridingly, even though it's been around for about 40 years, I knew it was there. I didn't get to go to it. It wasn't there when I was a kid. But it has helped me drive my life to take kids there. And as I said, I've been going for 31 years and taken just from the Southern Ute Reservation, 550 kids over 31 years. But again, through space camp, for those of you who haven't seen it, these are great doors that we go through. They can have 700 kids a week. So, and they have it very well choreographed. It's kind of like in the military. They can run 700 kids through the cafeteria in about an hour and a half. And it's this military precision. Now, what should the kids expect? They should come in wide-eyed, ready to go. And again, William Shatner is one of my favorite Canadian actors. What do kids get to do? They have simulations. They make rockets. They do missions. They learn the history. They do the gift shop. So all kinds of things to do for the kids. I recommend to the kids, follow your leaders. Learn from them. Learn from anyone. You can learn anything from anyone. Learn about history of space. Very prominent people there. We're going back to the moon. We're living history. We are living the history right now. Now, take a moment here. Feel here. Feel's going to get a Tangerita mix. Well, at random, but everybody should get something here. If you don't get anything by the time you leave, let me know. You will get something. Again, there's some prominent features from people in the past, historical. Making friends. This is important, not only at space camp. My daughter went 9 times. The 2 twin girls that she made friends with when she was in 4th grade, she still stays in contact with. But it's about making lifelong friends. And some of you I didn't know a year ago, and then we've had great interaction in the time being, and you're going to continue to be friends, and I will interact with you. Hopefully, if you don't want me to interact with you, tell me, because we will have a good time. Again, don't leave your friends hanging. Beautiful lady in the middle in dark hair, that is my daughter, Vanessa. She went to space camp 9 times. Now, I didn't make her. Now, she could have opted out anytime, but she chose to go. She loved going to space camp. And in life, plan for a successful mission. Planning is an important part, not only with space camp, but in regular life. You plan for success. You're going to have failures, but we learn from our failures. In space camp, I tell you what, if you're a space geek or a nerd, you're going to love the displays. They have historical artifacts that have flown, mock-ups. I believe the Saturn V is one of the most inspirational vehicle there. It's 363 feet tall, and it's well lit up. Gives us more scenes from space camp. Great. Thank you for your service. A coffee? Have a cup of coffee on us tomorrow. I just feel like Santa Claus giving stuff away. It's fun. Again, part of Rocket Park. We have to correct the children there. They said, I want to go ride the rides. And they are not rides, they are simulators. Okay, remember, they are simulators, not rides. Artifacts. Rockets, of course. And you always get an astronaut guest speaker. So that is wonderful. They have a rotating group of astronauts, and you get to see living history. Oftentimes, it'll be like Hoot Gibson or Bob Springer. And occasionally, I think I have a Story Musgrave on it. I love this sign at Space Camp. And it says, through these doors enter the world's future astronauts, scientists, and engineers. Teachers, miners, we're going to planets. There's going to be a position for every single person on that wants to go to space. Find out what you're passionate about. And we're going to go. We're going to. Somebody was saying the other day, who's going to cut your hair? We need barbers, hairstylists on the moon. So there is literally a job for everyone. You just got to find that. And that leads up to what I'm going to talk about in a minute here. Careers. As I said before, everything. It's wide open. It's like the wide open frontier again, except we're not going across the prairie or to the mountains. We're going up to the sky. In Star Trek, Final Frontier, it really is. Virgin Galactic, SpaceX. I'm going to buy you a cup of coffee. We know that the space industry is expanding. We're going to expand to $1 trillion business. Jobs we teach kids today or teach about don't even exist now. They'll exist 5, 10, 15 years in the future. Einstein talks about imagination being very important. Many things were impossible until they were done. And then they became possible. So I always, especially junior high kids, they have great imaginations. Now, I always tell things for the kids to think about. If you really want to go places, no matter what you do, be passionate about it. You know, enjoy every minute of life. Be in the present. Be aware. Now, be a good listener, but also be a good observer. Safety first. Space is hard. Space tries to kill you every chance it gets. And I would remind the kids when they go home, things to remember. We'll find those kids. They're not going to come around. You know, there's a small percentage that are going to be so passionate. They know and they're very focused. They know what to do. Those are the kids we encourage. But every kid, you know, encourage every student because everyone has a talent. And just we help them as mentors to find those talents. The very last one, remind students, never, ever give up. Because you never know what inspiration is going to come for. I've been inspired here. Here I'm going back to Colorado with a lot of new ideas and a lot of new friends that we can talk and converse. Whenever people get together, I always have an expression, 1 + 1 is greater than 2. You go beyond yourself. Now, about me a little bit. This is a picture of my ranch, family ranch. We've lived there. The house in the distance is where I grew up. I grew up with my parents were kids from the Depression. We had to pump water. You know, we had 2,000 chickens. We picked eggs every single day, farm, slopped the hogs, baled hay, harvested wheat, plowed. So I grew up with parents that had a very good work ethic. So I remember where I come from. These are some scenes from where I live. It's beautiful. My nearest neighbor is 2 miles away. It's semi-desert, so it's really dry. I think you have more rain in 1 month here in Timmins than we do all year. It's very dry. But just some pictures of where I live. So I know where I come from. I call it the Rocket Ranch because I have a bunch of spacey friends who love to launch big rockets. And we're just out of the area from the airport, so we can launch rockets to 50,000. But we got to, but these guys are just really cool, and they launch really big rockets. So I'm looking forward to rocket launches this week. Now you got to remember people in your life that you love. My brother is my biggest supporter. And I get a little choked up. There's a picture of us when we were really small. I was about 1.5 years old, and he was 5. But he's my biggest supporter, and I'm very fortunate to still have him. Enjoy this then. Now I'm getting to the packages a little bit here, a little bit later. But my lovely daughters, you got to have special people in your life. My daughter Vanessa and my daughter Amanda. This was from the night when I was inducted into the Space Camp Hall of Fame. This is various pictures throughout life. We have very different incarnations of ourselves. You know, I sported a really good mullet back in the day. I'm very lucky to have the honor to be taking a picture with Conrad Vandenberg, who was on Werner Braun's team. This is my lovely forever bride, Laura. At Space Camp, we got to be in a zombie movie. Last year, we filmed the zombie movie. We sold salsa on the zombie movie. They dressed us up. So we had to write that in our bucket list and so we could check it off. It was totally fun. And these are just connections we make as we go out and try to distribute salsa and the margarita mix and now the coffee. So more incarnation, you got to have fun. So I'm a fun-loving guy. So as you go through life, we only, as far as we know, we only go through this one time. So enjoy as much as you can. But after I retired from teaching, I wanted to help kids. So I loved making salsa. So in order to help kids, I started a company, Danny's Rocket Ranch. And so we just started investigating, researching, and we developed a product. We developed a dehydrated salsa. Now, this is our mission. Have a drink on us. 10% of our annual profits go for space camp scholarships. It was funny. I thought about myself. When I started this company, I said, really didn't start it to make money. But then I said, wait a minute. In order for us to help kids, we got to make money. You got to make to a point where you make more than it costs you. So that's why we're out expanding it, just making connections and meeting wonderful people. And again, you got to do a little advertising. 10% of our profits go for space camp scholarships. Now, I rebranded myself as a space food entrepreneur. Now, I'd never heard of that term, so I had to figure out what it meant. But I'm thoroughly enjoyed it, just expanding the brand. We started with a salsa. If you're going to have chips and salsa, you need to have a beverage to go along with it. So I developed a dehydrated margarita mix. So we have 2 of those. Then if you have a week where you have weekend, Sunday morning, you need to get wound up again. So we developed a coffee. So here are the products. Danny's Rocket Ranch Space Salsa. It is space certified. We could throw it on a rocket. Hopefully I'll get some of the Rocketeers and we'll put it in a payload and launch it. What is 60,000 feet? I think that's the altitude this week. I converted my house into a commercial kitchen. I gear up, don my stuff, and make salsa. Again, it's available online. Margarita mix. Now, Jason inspired this. We were at the Space Symposium and he said, Daddy, you ever heard of a Canadian double-double? And I go, what is it? 2 creams, 2 sugars. So this is Danny's Rocket Ranch Canadian coffee. It's sweetened with Canadian maple sugar. It tastes really good. New products coming up. I'm developing just drink mixes that you can put in a 6-ounce water bottle, shake it up, and enjoy some lemonade. Have a drink on me, on the rocket. Now, we are so progressive that this is our bar on Mars. We have a bar on Mars, it's Danny's Rocket Ranch Bar, and that is Danny and Laura B. Puppet. We're serving, as soon as we get some regular customers, we'll activate them and we will be serving on Mars. Now, I don't know if this video will work, but we'll just go past it. No. Be excellent to each other, and may the force be with you. And a reminder that we did not harm any Ewoks while making this PowerPoint stuff. Again, you can find me at dannysrocketranch.com. If you want to contact me, dannysrocket@gmail.com. And remember, you never know where inspiration is going to strike. So be open to anything. Any questions? And if you didn't get anything, make sure you get some before you walk out the door.
We have a question over here.
Thank you. I'm sure everybody knows this, but it's worth repeating. Artemis was the Apollo's sister, and it's it's very symbolic that we're sending the first female to the moon. My question is, at Danny's Rocket Ranch, are there a lot of girls that are interested and attend?
Yes. When we go to space camp, the last couple of times, more than half of the students were girls. And our basis is, again, we're giving them a hand. They need a hand. We grew up in a very rural, very poor part of Colorado. So a teacher helped me, and I just paying it forward. The kids are our future. It gets me up in the morning, and I know if you're having a bad day, it says, no, it helps kids. It helps our future. We pay it forward. That is our job. Teachers leave this world a better place.
Any other questions? Oh, we've got another one over here.
This might be easy, might be hard. You're the sales guy. So I hear, you can buy some McDonald's burger and fries, leave it on the counter. It might last 15 years. So what makes your product special and nutritious, and how can you see it expanding or, actually being eaten on Mars?
Well, because it's first of all, it's dehydrated and freeze-dried components, so all the moisture has been taken out, and then by the addition of an oxygen absorber, when I seal it out and remove most of the oxygen, that oxygen with the oxidation of food, it reduces it down to almost virtually zero. But there's still some. If you put it out 100 years, I don't know. I can't guarantee it after 100 years, but it keeps it at that level. It's like keeping it down to absolute zero. It keeps it frozen in time, and the nutrients are still viable. Does that answer your question? Okay. Right.
Any other questions? Oh, we've got one front row.
So for 9 years, you've been taking the kids to space camp. In those 9 years, how many children have benefited and gone forward with a career in space?
Okay, 31 years. I have, as long as 2 of them went to be on the pilots, 5 chopper pilots, all girls. And 1 young man who works at Glenn Research Center as a metallurgist.
Amazing.
If you want, we have the video, but go on to Space Camp Hall of Fame, and you can see my induction video. And there's a picture of Glenn Bigelow working at, talking about his experience at space. So there, we can just keep touching those kids and getting them to be positive. You don't know where they're going to. I am sure I will be seeing kids that I work with walk on back of the moon and onto Mars. I just know.
Any other questions? All right, ladies and gentlemen, Danny Jacques.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure. Oh, one thing that we're planning to do next year, we'll brainstorm with Jason. Danny's Rocket Ranch will sponsor a trip to space camp for some lucky young person in the Timmins area in June of 2025.
Wouldn't that be something?
We are. We just got to get them interested, get them down there. It's quite the adventure. So that's what we're planning.
Excellent. Again, thank you so much for coming. Hope you enjoyed your stay and enjoy your stay in Timmins for the rest of the week here.
I'll be back.
All right. What an amazing performance and presentation there. Our keynote speaker, Danny Jacques from Danny's Rocket Ranch. We're just going to take a few minutes here and get set for our final, I think it was our final keystone speaker of the afternoon. Sharon Eagleston is just about to hit the podium. Some excitement with Sharon coming right up. So we're just going to take a few seconds break while Sharon gets set here. Out our day number 2 here at the Stardust Festival 2023 here at Palais Boreal is a lady who, well, she says she's having a lot of fun getting here. 2-day RV ride, hanging out at Big Water. She's all the way from Maine. She's going to be talking Embrace Space for this presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Timmins, Sharon Eggleston.
Thank you, everyone. Again, my name is Sharon Eggleston. I am an aerospace educator from Maine, Brunswick, Maine, and I'm also a retired Lockheed Martin engineer. I retired after 23 years as a senior project engineer working on the DDG-51 class destroyer program. So quite honored to work for Lockheed Martin. I'm here today because they asked me to tell you a little story. And so I'm going to tell you about a little girl who grew up in a small town in New England. And she had 3 brothers and a sister, a large family. And from a very, very young age, all she could ever think about was becoming a teacher. That was her goal in life. So as she progressed through school, elementary, junior high, high school, she knew that that was going to be her career. She ended up applying to the University of Maryland into their education department, and she was accepted. She went there for 1.5 years, and sadly, after that, she was academically dismissed. She didn't like telling too many people about that for a very, very long time because it was such a disappointment to herself and to her family. But what happened after that was that she ended up leaving the school. They told me I could go back in 1 year, but instead, I married my husband 53 years ago, and we raised a family. Well, after the family decided to go back to school, I thought that that would be really kind of cool, but I didn't have the means to do that. So I had to look for a job. So I went out and I applied for a position, and I was offered 2 different companies offered me a position, but I have to say, thank goodness I chose Lockheed Martin. I ended up working for Lockheed Martin, and I was a file clerk. A file clerk is basically a secretary. So I was a secretary for about 10 years. And I kind of went up in the ranks. You know, I eventually became an engineering administrator. But because of my love of math, my goal was always to be teach algebra and trigonometry. And so what happened was that love to do that, my life changed a little bit. And so what happened was that as I worked with Lockheed Martin, my boss saw something in me that I just didn't see. And he recommended that I go back to school and get my degrees. At that moment, I couldn't do it. I had 2 small children I was raising at home. I didn't have time. So instead, what I did was I just continued working for Lockheed Martin. Well, about 2 years later, we went down to Disney World in Florida, and I was on one of the rides. It was a ride to the future. And I happened to just see a big sign up at the top, and it said, "If you can dream it, you can do it." And honestly, I took that to heart, and I believed it. And so after I did that vacation, I went back to Lockheed Martin, and I told them that I would like to go back to school. And they were very, very good about that, and they helped pay for my education. And over a period of time, while I was working full-time, I went and I got my degrees. And when I got the degrees, I got my master's degree at 52. My goal, I went back to school when I was 40, and I wanted to get it by the age of 50. So I just worked hard. I worked at night. I went to work during the daytime, 8 hours working with the ships. And then at nighttime, I went to school 2 days out of the week for 4 hours each day. And I always tell students that when you have these goals that you want to make, you got to have these little things that kind of give you a reward. So I'll tell you what my reward was that actually got me through college. And that was that every single time I had that in late night class, I would stop off at the ice cream store on the way home and I would get myself an ice cream. So that was my goal for the day, get through work, get through school, and then go get my ice cream. So anyway, what happened is that as I was progressing through school and graduated, and I will proudly say, from being academically dismissed, I graduated summa cum laude. And when I did graduate, I found that at work, I started getting additional jobs. The management would come to me and say, Sharon, I think you can do this, and I think you can do that. And I just took on everything because I just became a sponge, just a sponge. Wanted to learn everything that I could possibly learn. So during that period of time, a program came up that Lockheed introduced in 1997, and it was called Space Day. Space Day is a day set aside the first Friday in May around the world. And it's a time to try to inspire students to become our future engineers and scientists and technologists and teachers. I bought into that hook, line, and sinker. So what happened is that for the next couple of years, I was into Space Day, but I was very small because my very, very first Space Day was nothing more than a kindergarten class of 15 students. And all I did was go into that classroom and I read them a couple of stories and we did a couple of activities. But I was hooked from that first time. And so then I just started to kind of expand. I started to take on more classes. Then I took on a school. Then I took on a school district. And then I started to build bridges between communities. And I want to say that truly one of the people that has been so much of an inspiration to me, he's in the audience today, is Brian Johansson. Brian gave me my very first title back in 1998 as the Northeast Regional Coordinator of Space Day. And since then, he's been part of my program. And I want to say that when we started with those 15 students, we now have, in May, we celebrated our 25th anniversary of Space Day. This year, we did 8 schools in, I think, 4 or 5 towns, and over 4,000 students. And some years, I've actually had 10,000 students. We invite astronauts to come. We have a partnership that we've developed between the Navy, the government, public and private industry, and so many people here that are here today and have been at the festival that are part of our program as well. So Space Day just became part of my life. When I retired from Lockheed Martin, I wanted to continue. So I just kept going. I was like the Energizer Bunny. So I kept going, doing Space Day year after year after year. And it's been, I've been retired now since 2012. So that's a long time to be doing it, but it's worth it. I just love to inspire students. I will tell you, I have a special inkling towards inspiring young girls, because when I went to college, I can still remember the engineering department at the University of Maryland. You had to go out on the field to your departments, and I went to the education, and the ones that went to the engineering, there must have been like, I don't know, it seemed like 1,000 young men, and there were 2 girls. That's how it was when I was growing up. You know, you didn't have that option. So what happened after that is that I ended up I worked with the Main Space Grant Consortium. I've been working with them now for 20 plus years, and they have supported me along the way. And in addition to that, they help with my transportation to bring astronauts to Maine, that type of thing. And let me see. One of the other things that I absolutely love is that as Space Day, it takes almost, like it does here for the festival, it takes a long time to literally put one of these events on. And so we start planning about 6 months in advance to do this. So basically what I would like to do is I have a couple of pictures just to show you. But what I want to show you, and as you look at it, is I want you to remember this. I started out as a file clerk in a company, worked hard, worked my way through, and one of the greatest honors I've ever had is that I was selected out of 230,000 people, and I won Lockheed Martin's Nova Award, the highest award that's given to anyone, for my work with Space Day and inspiring the youth of today. So again, here's some pictures. You can see me, there I am with my destroyer. Just what a life. And Lockheed did that for me. Education was another thing. I had the honor and the privilege of meeting John Glenn in Washington, D.C. We got invited by the president and CEO of Lockheed Martin, and we went down to Washington, and we sat under the Spirit of 76, and we had dinner with the board of directors of Lockheed. Never in my wildest dreams would I have ever thought of any of that. So let's see another one. Here we are. I'm still a kid at heart. I still love to dress up. I go to Houston, I put the uniforms on, I try to get into the spacesuits. When we talk about opportunities, these pictures right here are going to show you. The first one up in the upper corner, that was when we did a space day up in Augusta, Maine. And we had so many students come to that one. It was a huge, huge enterprise that we did. The one on the bottom is very unique. And the reason is that we had a group of students that wanted to go down for a launch. So we helped them over a period of a time, about a year, to earn the money to go down. So we knew the astronaut on board, and it was Chris Cassidy. And we asked him before we left, we said, look, these kids have really, really worked hard. They have earned this money to go down there. And we also know that sometimes there's glitches. So if there's anything that happens, can you see if there's any way that NASA could help us out? Because we're going to have about 20, 25 kids down there. So he said he'd see what he could do. So anyway, so we get down there for the launch, for his launch, and it got scrubbed. And so we thought, oh my gosh, what are we going to do with all these kids? They paid all this money. Next thing you know is I get a phone call from NASA, and they're sending a bus over to get us, and they're going to take care of us all day long. And one of the things that they did for us is they actually took us to the closest that they've ever allowed junior high students to go, young students to go. And we were just a matter of a couple of 100 feet away from the shuttle. And I can tell you, you can only imagine the pictures that we took that day. So when we came back to the center, we're in the astronaut incumbent, or whatever they call it, encounter. And while we were there, we were eating. And I'm talking to my sister-in-law, and all of a sudden I hear somebody say, Sharon, is that you? And I turn around, and it was Chris Cassidy's mother. And I went, what are you doing here? And she said, well, my son is on the shuttle. And so I said, I know that. But I said, aren't they whining and dining you because the thing was canceled? And she said, no, they just brought us over, and they just kind of left us right here at the center. So I said, well, guess what? You're now part of our group. So for the entire day, and she's right there in pink, for the entire day, she stayed with us all day long. And right down there in the picture where the three of us are standing, you'll see in the background the shuttle, and that's the one that her son eventually piloted. So what happened is we've seen 2 shuttles in my life with students, and the final experience I had was in November. I got a wonderful invitation from Jason and Diana and the contingency, and we ended up going down to the Kennedy Space Center, and we saw the launch of the Artemis. So if anyone ever gets an opportunity, you want to see a launch. So I've been fortunate enough to see 3, and I will hopefully be there for the next one. So again, I think we're almost done. This one here, this is Jessica Meir. This is Maine's astronaut. Jessica, it has been selected as one of the Artemis future astronauts that's going to go to the moon. She hasn't been assigned a crew yet, but she is on the Artemis team. And when she was in space with Chris Cassidy, it was very rare. There were only 2 people that have been in space at the same time from the same state. So they asked if we could go ahead and set up a downlink with the astronauts. And so I went ahead and did that, and I worked with the Challenger Center. And what happened next was that when we were on there, they asked me to set up a number of students to ask questions, and we got our senator and the governor and all these people. And at one point towards the end, I don't think that they knew it, but I got both of their mothers to ask questions. So I can still remember, I can hear Chris, his mother say, "Hi, Chris, it's Mom." And the same thing, "Hi, Jessica, it's Mom." And then they asked questions that the little kids, you know, were going to ask. So that was absolutely an experience in itself. And I have to say that I was very fortunate to be the one that could sign off for them. And so when I did it very professional, you know, when I said, "We want to thank Captain Cassidy and Dr. Meir for their, you know, for the downlink with the students and answering questions." And I just was so professional. And then when I was all done, they both knew me. So they both, "Thanks, Sharon." So that was kind of exciting to me. It was really exciting. But Jessica, keep your eye on her. Keep an eye on her experiences, because she will be there and you'll be able to hear all about it. Again, I'm just playing. I love, love, love to go to Houston, to the, it's called SEEK, if anybody ever has a chance to do that. It's a wonderful conference, and you meet so many people there. Just like now, you're going to start meeting people here. We've all had contacts and everything else. And then I think you guys maybe know the guy on the left, Chris Hadfield, Canadian astronaut, and that's Chris Cassidy on the right. And then this guy up here on the top, everybody knows, I sure love him. That's Clayton Anderson. Clayton applied to be an astronaut, and I believe it was 17 times, 15 times that he applied before he got accepted. And this one I'm very proud of, because I like to promote girls. So what I did is I set up a meeting with Wendy Lawrence, astronaut Wendy Lawrence, and I made sure that everybody that went was female. It had to be, the teachers had to be female, the people who worked the computers, I don't care who it was, they all had to be female. And so that's what we did here. And Wendy is in the background. It's kind of dark, so you can't see it. But I got to tell you, these girls, I mean, you talk about impressed and being inspired. And a lot of times that's what it takes. They just have to have somebody that they can talk to or see, and just get some ideas of opportunities that they might have in their lives. And then up here, it's just, if you can dream it, you can do it. And as I said, when I went through Disney, I have believed this my entire life now. Whatever dreams you have, if you work hard enough, you can achieve them. So a lot of students, even today and yesterday, a lot of students would ask me for advice. You know, how do you get to where you got to? You know, I mean, if you flunked out of school, how did you ever get to where you are today? And so what I do is I tell them that you have to set goals, and those goals have to be attainable. And you have to have short-term goals as well as long-term. Because if you just have long-term goals, you're going to get frustrated and you're not going to sometimes really meet them. Many, many of the astronauts that I've talked to, and I so believe this, is you have to have passion. Passion in what you're going to do for your career. And I have to say, I have loved my career, and if I could repeat it all over again, I would do that. But you have to have passion. And when you do, your job doesn't become your job. It just is, you love going to work. So that's very, very important. Work hard. Nothing in life truly is easy. I thought it was when I went to college for the first time. I got A's in everything in the lower grades, everything. I got to college and that wasn't true. It was hard. It was really hard. And my husband was getting ready to go to Vietnam, and you know, I had kids at home. It was difficult. But the thing is that I persevered. I did not give up. I persevered. And those are very, very important traits. Another one is a role model or a mentor. If you can find someone that has the same interests that you do, they can help you tremendously to move in your careers. Opportunities. I've had so many opportunities that I had absolutely no idea that I was going to get to do them. I could tell you a whole day of all the opportunities that I've had. But the important thing is you should know is as opportunities come along, grab them, do the best you can, because your bosses will see that. And then they'll start coming to you with more opportunities. And then again, the most important thing is be patient with yourself, because we want to get there fast, but you can't. You know, I mean, look at what it took me. I think it took me 20 some years before I finally got on the right track. But the important thing is I did it. I got on the right track. And what I always tell people now is my life has gone full circle. So the thing is that I started out wanting to become a teacher. And now basically I had a class in college I taught masters and undergraduates. And now I teach what I call students of the world. So again, I hope that a lot of people, a lot of students take these things to heart, because truly, I think almost everybody that you have probably talked to today can associate with these keys to success. And if you follow some of them, you will succeed to do. So thank you very much. I want to thank the City of Timmins. If I'm the one that's closing, I want to say that it has been an absolute joy, not only for myself, but from the people that I have heard from, that the City of Timmins has become so welcoming. And I do not plan on this, even though it took us 2.5 days to get here, I do not plan on this being our last time of coming. So again, thank you all. And if you can dream it, you can do it. Thank you.
Wow.